live button, Star. And I'm hoping this is working here. Those of you out there in Talk Universe watching this, please let me know if you're having any audio issues, because I don't want any of that. I don't want audio issues, because when I tried this 2 weeks ago, I tried like a screen sharing thing and nobody could hear the guest's audio. And then I yanked it, Star. I yanked it off Facebook before anybody could see it, did my whole day's worth of 10 or 11 interviews. And I went back and had all these comments, and it was angry comments from friends that couldn't hear the audio of the video I yanked off of Facebook that wasn't yanked off.
Oh, that's so frustrating.
And they didn't know it wasn't live. So then they took it very, very personally, because they thought I was conducting this interview and willfully ignoring their pleas for and cries for
attention.
Help. And,
Totally.
Not so good that way. Now, you're watching right now. If you can help me, Star, could you just say something? And please, please, please just type something in if you cannot hear Star. So how are you doing today, Star?
World. I'm amazing. I had just the most amazing start to my day. I went for a walk by the ocean, and I think I took the most breathtaking picture I've ever taken in my life. Please check out my Instagram. I'm more excited about that picture than most things that I've experienced.
Where's your Instagram? Tell us your Instagram.
It's Star M Hansen.
Star M Hansen. Okay.
Yes.
So if it turns out that the audio didn't work, at least I told everybody your Instagram account, and they can check out your amazing sunrise sunset photos on there. So that actually works for me. Just fine right there. I'm going to assume that this is working, and we're going to forge forward here in a minute. Actually, now, Star, did I remember to send you the onboarding video?
I believe you did. Okay. We onboarded several weeks ago, so yeah.
Wow. So I always recap it really, really quick. So
yeah.
2-minute summary, tell me a story, and give me the big picture summary of your talk. I'll set you up for that. Tell a story. It's not a performance. You already did great TED talk. This is not a performance. Then we'll have a conversation. I will ask you questions according to the spirit of the conversation that we are about to have. So I don't know what questions I'll ask, but it'll be reasonably appropriate questions. Then we'll have the blitz round. Those are the either or questions related to the performance of your talk. That's when you get to give advice to Talk Universe of what they should do. And then we'll have the final word of advice. And then we're done. It's a 15 to 20 minute interview, and it goes by quick. And great website, starhansen.com. I'll spell it out for everybody so there's no doubt. And, then the final word of advice, and then we're good to go.
Excellent.
At that point. So any questions for me before we jump on?
No, I feel excited about our talk today.
Good. I'm excited too. So I'm looking at everything. Yeah, we are right on time, right on schedule. Oh, stretch just a little bit. You are my final interview of the day. I think there were 7 today, and 6 were able to show up, which is great.
Oh, that's great.
One person not feeling well, so not too bad. So so this is good. And I think I was able to tag you in my little pre-show thing yesterday. If I wasn't able to do that, let me know so that we can humble brag. And cross-promote.
I don't think I got it. So yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so LinkedIn and Facebook. If we're not connected, I try to do the tagging, and I post it out on my personal profile on Facebook. Just because it doesn't throttle me back and whatnot. So if you haven't friended me, and if you're comfortable doing that and you want the tag, then feel free to do that, and then I'll go back and tag you. I'm going to do another one of these things tomorrow where I can actually speak with intelligence about what all of the 17 people that I interviewed to actually, I think it's only 14 or 13 people, because a lot of people didn't make it yesterday, which is a little surprising. So just got to make my, actually it's Skype is what it is. So I got to make even more detailed notes for most of the people are big picture people like us and are not detail people. Still I will make even more detailed notes.
Totally.
And after that, I'll hire somebody to help me navigate all this stuff when I'm doing all this. So that is what I shall do. All right. So we're ready to go. Are you ready to go, Star?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Star Hansen. Star, are you ready to talk?
Bring it.
Star Hansen is a certified professional organizer who helps people get their life in order by deconstructing their past to make space for their future. Star helps people fill their space with life, not stuff. Her approach has been featured on the Oprah Winfrey Network, her own, TLC, A&E, Style, HGTV, and the Tyra Banks Show. Star Hansen, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan.
Your talk is called Listen to the Monster in the Closet, and you have given a truly transcendental TEDx talk. I mean, it's really, you're a professional organizer, you're the clutter whisperer, but it's not really about the clutter. It's about all the stuff in our life that we're trying to shove literally in the figurative closet. So that's why we can talk today, because up until about 3 weeks ago, the room adjacent to me right now was filled with all kinds of rubbish and junk and clutter. And I would have felt so self-conscious having this conversation, but it's really about all the figurative stuff that we're stuffing. So how were you able to give such a wonderfully philosophical talk that is yet so immediately relevant to each of our lives?
Wow. Well, Nathan, thank you for that lead up. I feel like that was the nicest tee off I've ever gotten for the TEDx talk. That was amazing.
Maybe the wordiest too. I ran out of
I
air,
love it. I'll take
that's
it.
how I feel about it. It's a great talk.
That means so much to me, because my intention in my work and in my talk is to touch people. And by that, I mean, my intention is to remind you that there's nothing wrong with you, that there's nothing wrong with your clutter, that there's nothing wrong with being a work in progress. And that's really what I do. It's what I do and have done for the last 13 plus years with my clients. What I noticed when I started my business was that people had this clutter that they were incredibly self-conscious about. But I would look at their clutter and see possibility and this beautiful history. But the shame that they would feel would just drag them down, and they would stop seeing the beauty and the inspiration. And so I became an organizer who pretty quickly didn't care if you got organized. I cared what the clutter was telling us about you. I cared if it was sharing an insight about your life that you would want to express. So for me, it's way more about personal transformation than it is about the stuff, because the stuff is just this beautiful catalyst that we get to work in. It's a safe place, which sounds crazy because most people don't consider their stuff to be safe. But the truth is, working through our emotional baggage through a physical thing like clutter is wonderful, because we take practical steps when we organize, like categorize, label, contain, and our brain says, thank you for the dopamine hit, I just got to complete something. And simultaneously, we're working through some pretty deep stuff, because we're looking at, what do you have? Why do you have it? Is this what you want? Is this where you're going? We're addressing these deep, profound questions that lead you to the life that you want to live. And that's why I'm in it. I'm in it for your highest good. I'm in it for you to feel great about yourself and to be living this blissful life charged with joy. The stuff is just secondary. It's just it's essentially the clay when we're building the sculpture of your life.
Talk Universe, anybody else out there feel like Star is reading your mail? Or is it just me? Come on.
That's illegal. I'm not doing it, I promise.
This is great. I mean, you're like describing my mindset, because all the, you start stuffing stuff. There really is a reason why we stuff, and it's all subconscious. Excuse me. Before we even get into that, I'm wondering what your philosophy of life is, Star, your spiritual practice, because basically you're able to go in there and you're taking the exact opposing energy when it comes to clutter and organization. And our default is basically, recurring, subliminal, and conscious shame, guilt, stuffing, avoidance, all of these things, and you're finding beauty and wonder and discovery and possibility. I mean, it couldn't be any farther apart. So what led you to be, how did you get the awareness to be able to take kind of the darkest, some of the darkest areas of our life, just because we all want to be good rational thinkers and find the beauty and the wonder and be so darned disarming about the whole thing?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, I would lead it back to about 15 years ago when I was desperately seeking my purpose. I was feeling a little lost. I was in the middle of two career paths that I was basically doing what I said I wanted to do. You know, I was living this life that I said that I was going to do, but I felt empty inside. I felt like I didn't know why I was doing it and a little empty and frustrated, and you know, I just wasn't getting the payoff I thought I would. And so my cry within myself was, please help me find my purpose. What's my purpose? And I find when I work with people that our purpose is not something outside of ourselves. It's the truest, most essential part of who we are. And when I realized that, I was able to see very quickly that mine is that I'm a healer. And this has been a journey for me. So for the last, for the first maybe 5-8 years, I was going under the assumption that I was here to help and heal you. I was going to fix what was wrong. And I was doing the same thing to myself. I was like, what's wrong with Star? Fix it, fix it. I don't have clutter, but I have my own stuff. So essentially what it's taken me to through my own course of my own experience and just the course of my career is that as a healer, my job is not to fix what's broken. God's calling.
Something's broken.
I know. My job is not to fix what's broken. My job is to help you remember your wholeness. And when I realized that within myself, I was able to then give it to the people that I work with, and I was able to see it crystal clear in people's stuff. So this intuition that I had, that I was fascinated by people's stuff, became even more explosive when I really understood that nobody's broken. This is just a beautiful expression of who they are and what we came here to do. And yeah, it just became a cornerstone of my life and a cornerstone of my work.
Can you give us just a couple of case studies from not necessarily from the talk, but maybe beyond the talk, maybe more recent than the talk,
Sure.
of people that you've helped? I mean, it was just a really incredible collection of stories that you shared.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, well, I have a client that I worked with who, people never hire me. I always say, if you knew how long it was going to take, what we were going to do, and how much you were going to spend, you'd never hire me. And yet the people who hire me never want me to stop. So it's one of the, you don't want the medicine until you've taken it and seen the results and then sign me up. But I was called in to organize a bedroom. And it was the homeowner's bedroom, and it was, standard clutter for what a lot of people would experience. So there was magazines by the bed and pills on the nightstand, and the bed was, disheveled, and she was having a hard time with her housekeeper, and there was just basic things. Well, when we started actually looking at the whole of the house, because I actually focus on the whole person and the whole home, it all tells me the story. This was a beautiful woman who was an empty nester, and when she started having kids, she was so devoted to her kids, and then when they grew up and moved away, she didn't know who she was anymore. And she was this fascinating woman who was an artist and creative and powerful. She had some chutzpah. She was like in it. This was a magical woman of force. And she became a mom and kind of forgot a little bit that other part of herself. And so as we started deconstructing the rooms of her home, she started remembering that woman again, and she starting to engage in her creative endeavors, and she started to see who she was, and she started to make separation from her kids, and her kids were able to make peace with her, and it was this beautiful journey. And why I was called was for her to make peace with her children and to really step into this next level of herself. But she thought I was there to organize her side table. So it's, I come in how I come in, and that was in that particular case study how it happened. But, people do fascinating things. I'll be called in, and I was called in to work with one person, and it took her 3 attempts. She called me, we had one session, she wouldn't call me for like 3 months, and then she called me again, she wasn't quite ready, and that's okay. You come in on your own timetable. But she called me in to organize her house with her, and her entire home was cluttered, and it's like you could barely walk in the door. It was so full of stuff. And the truth of her experience was she was buried in work. and she was drowning in it. And because of that, it was almost like she needed more stuff at the house because she was energetically trying to weigh herself down so that she would have a personal life. And so through the course of our time together, it took us about 2 years to work through her entire house. And we were able to free up her space. We were able to organize her at work. She actually ended up leaving her job, and she moved to this adorable farmhouse in the Northern Pacific, and she lives there, has 3 different entrepreneurial jobs that she loves and is passionate about that express her, and she just totally transformed her home. So yeah, it's never about the stuff. The stuff is just a beautiful catalyst that tells us a story that, if we listen, will guide us on an amazing adventure into discovering ourselves.
So, folks, it's not about the clutter. It's about what's going on underneath. This is so funny. I keep thinking of like the movie. This isn't really the parallel. I can't help it. I keep thinking of like that movie Hitch. With,
yes.
It's like you bring in the person and it's like they transform your life. And it wasn't what you were doing wasn't what you thought you were doing, but you're all happy at the end of the day anyway.
Yeah, well, what I love about that movie is it reminds you to step into the truth of who you are. It wasn't about, the life lesson at the end of that was, hey, what worked wasn't this fancy stuff that, you were told by the expert, but it was the fact that the expert gave you the confidence to be who you truly are. And that was the most loved part of those people, was the authentic part of themselves. And I find the exact same thing. The thing that feels most unlovable to people is often the thing that is cause for the greatest amount of love.
What I feel like is really incredible and unique about you is that every time it seems like you and maybe this is a little too blown out of proportion, so feel free. But it seems like a lot of the time you're able to not just do the job, best in class and certainly well beyond competently, but it's transformational. It's really transcendental. First of all, feel free to backpedal that if
No,
you wish
no.
to do that. But it seems like there's some really transformational stories. My question to you is how can other people be transformational in their consulting or their speaking or their, right now in their talk as well? Because we're talking with Talk Universe. They want to give that talk out of their own personal experience. So what's your advice for how you can not just give a great talk, a memorable talk, even a life-changing talk, but what about a transformational talk, taking that gold out of your life?
Align with your purpose. TED is all about an idea worth spreading. And my idea worth spreading, at first it was actually Clutter Kills. And the curator was great. She was like, I love it. That's not new. And I was like, you're right. So we got to sit down and we really talked about what is it that I do? Because I have such a good girl living inside me who wants to give you what you need and like, am I doing it right? And I have to take a sledgehammer to that part of myself sometimes because she's not who helps people. The good girl doesn't help people. And so in really looking at what I do, it became Clutter Speaks. And I'm this hunter who's able to communicate with clutter in a way that nobody else can. And so how do I give them the insight that, one, that's even possible, and two, how in the world do they do this themselves? And I do think my work in the talk is transformational because that's what I invite people to do. I don't say I'm going to do it for you. Here's 3 easy steps. I say, have you considered that you're talking to yourself? Have you considered your clutter is good? And I get emails almost every day of people who've watched the talk and then immediately organize something. You made me want to organize. I mean, I make them want to organize. That's a big deal. Like normally people are like, I'd rather punch myself in the face than organize. But the goal really is to uplift and inspire. And so for me, speaking to those TEDx speakers, speak from your heart, speak with purpose, have an idea that is unique and viable to you. And it might take you a while. It took me, the entire 6 months of preparation that I put into this TEDx talk, I was transforming. The talk was transforming, but I was transforming along with the talk because the thing that we are here to give in this world is an expression of us. So to give our greatest give, we also have to be willing to transform and put skin in the game because how in the world, Nathan, could I expect you to put skin in the game if I don't have any in myself?
Well, hey, it's not a microwave talk universe. It's 6 months. I talked with someone a couple hours ago that I was interviewing, and 8 months for that person. I think it was about 6 months for me. as well. And if you want this, it's a slow cooker. It's a crock pot. It is not a microwave. So
No, I love when people are like, "You're so conversational," and I'm like, "Totally scripted. Thank you. I appreciate
really well
it.
done.
Totally,
Really well done. Yeah.
Totally.
Actors are acting.
Yes.
And so not about you, but about the script. They can bring life to a completely regimented script and make it look completely spontaneous.
Yes, and that you're propelled by that inspiration. You're propelled by that purpose that you have to share. I don't need to stand on stage. I love standing on stage, but the truth is, I have to share this message. It's not like I desire or my ego wants it. It's like, you need to hear this message, and my soul needs to send it. So my body's just going to do what it's got to do to get it there.
There you go. Well, we're going to do what we got to do to get into the Blitz round to talk
Yes!
more about this stuff. Star, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
All right. Question number 1. Were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I applied and auditioned.
All right. Join the club. That's how it works for most of us. All right. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I'm a mix. I'm a blender, but for the TED Talk that I gave, it was a memorizer because that was what my coach recommended.
Okay. Seasoned performer or new to this type of stage?
Seasoned performer.
Nerves or in the zone or neither or both?
No nerves the day of. I had like the week, but I mean, I feel joyful when I'm on stage. 1 week before though, for like 3 days, I felt like I was having a walking anxiety attack, for no reason, but I just like for 3 days, I had this moment, but the days leading up to the talk and on the day of the talk, I felt like I was flying. I felt amazing.
All right. So you're walking around. It's coming. It's coming for me.
Yes,
It's coming. That's great. All right. Hey, cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Oh, I mean, I'm writing a book, Nathan. I'm writing a book. That's how much I had to cut out.
Oh,
I don't even know where to start.
Good idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually made peace with it. It was a lot easier to cut when I just decided I would write a book. And within a week of finishing the TED Talk, I signed with an incredible agency, and we're working on putting my book out there now, and it's so exciting because now I get to share all the dozens of stories that had to be sliced and diced to get in there. I think the biggest thing was getting to I will really enjoy getting to make the monster that is our clutter have more of a personality. Let it be more engaging and real for people.
What's a tip, a technique, or a tool that helped you?
For the TED Talk, I would say lean into your community, but lean into a select community. So when I first started public speaking, I was a lone ranger. I would do it myself. And my talks got drastically better when I started showing them to other people. Personally, I don't know how people do their TED Talks without a Toastmasters community. Mine was stellar. I had 3 different clubs that I could try my talk on. So by the time I stepped on stage, it was old hat and I was safe. And then I only chose 2 other people to really share this with. One was a client, because that's my target audience. So always share it with your target audience. And then one was a friend of mine who's a producer for the BBC who really knows performance. And those were the 2 people who had to watch my talk over and over again. Because if you ask too many people, you're going to get too much feedback and it's going to be dangerous. But yeah, cherry pick your people and get in front of a group as much as you can.
So I heard qualify your community. Make sure they're good. And, if, Toastmasters or a good coach or whatever it takes, but make sure you're getting input from the right people.
Yes.
Love it. So it's a live performance. So what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
Oh, can I have... Okay. My mom is going to kill me for this. So right before my talk, my mom, I live in California, and the talk was in Tucson, my hometown. And so my family was there. I had like 30 plus people in the audience, which was amazing. And right before the talk, she's going to kill me. She walked up to me and she said, "Well, when you get home, I've got some chores for you to do tonight." I was like, "What? I'm going on stage in 3 minutes." No, it wasn't 3 minutes, but it was like, I love that my family keeps me humble. I love that, she wanted to communicate that she needed help in that moment. But
and that's what green rooms are for, to get away from the riffraff like that, right?
Oh, my mom's not riffraff. I love her. No, the other thing that was funny was...
I don't mean that.
No, totally. The other thing that was funny is that when I was giving my talk, I was giving about 3 lines at a time to someone that I was focusing on, right? So it could be a real connection. and I was making eye contact with this gentleman in the audience, and it was on the pivotal line. It was like the closing line. And so I delivered the line, and I'm making eye contact with him, and he jumps up out of his seat and gives like this standing ovation. And then I get an email from him several days later asking me out because he took it as like a real connection. Like, he was like, ooh, we really got, and I was like, that's amazing that he felt like I was really talking to him. Like, I was really talking to him, but I was talking to the clutter inside of him, not.
Well, men can do that sometimes, but yeah, I guess it's possible to connect a little too much.
A little too much connection of the dots.
Then again, that's what the green room is for, and that's what backstage is for.
Yes, there was a good crossover. He had to track me down elsewhere, so he didn't find me right away. But it was pretty funny. I was like, well, at least I was really making a connection with the audience. That's a nice feeling.
Oh, you sure were. Oh well, we've been enjoying a really fun conversation with Star Hansen, which really things are not as they seem, because what you would think is a talk about clutter is really about what we're trying to avoid and what the things that we do, our outputs, are actually communicating about us to other people, and if we'll hear it ourselves. It's a great talk. You're going to be able to watch this talk if you go to our show notes page and click on the link that we have. It's called Listen to the Monster in Your Closet. Of course, you can bypass all of that and hand type it all in on YouTube, but who wants to do that much work? Just click the link that we've provided, as well as connect with Star in an appropriate way. Don't ask her out on a date or anything like that, but we have a second, speaking of inappropriate connections, make it an appropriate connection, and you can go over to starhansen.com, starhansen.com, HANSEN.com. Over to you, Star, with the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Fill your space with life, not stuff. I think it's so important to stop punishing yourself. It's so natural when you have clutter to punish yourself and make judgments. But instead, try to fill your life, not your space. Fill your life with the things that bring you true joy. Because when you're in that joyful state, handling the clutter will not feel like a chore. It's going to feel like a loving act that's in service to your highest good and your happiness. So fill your life, fill your space with life and joy, not stuff.
Star Hansen, thanks so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan. I had a great time with you today.
All right, that's a wrap.
Awesome. You were great. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Fun interview. Oh, my gosh. What a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, we got a little bit of engagement on social media. We're going to actually go off the Facebook